All right, Thom Serafin joining us this morning, and normally we'd just be talking about this right here. There's the front page and the back page of the Chicago Sun-Times, as you can see right there. 45 years. Can you kind of read it there? 45 years
yes,
later, at last. There you go. But no, the Republicans stealing a little bit of thunder this morning as we talk about a possible running mate, and we chatted about this earlier this week about the fact that the Democrats kind of need to think out of the box. The Republicans definitely need to think out of the box. And with the possible announcement of Vice President Sarah Palin from Alaska, the Alaskan governor, this is definitely out of the box.
It is. She's been one of the extraordinary American stories, but she's been on the second and third tier. You know, people have talked about her, but they really haven't talked about her in the first tier with Mitt Romney and others. So if John McCain makes this selection, as it's being rumored today, and everybody's talking about it, in Fox Network interviewed the people at the tarmac saying, I believe that might be the right person that landed, you know, in very, very secret fashion earlier today. If that's the choice, it'd be an extraordinary choice, because the contrast between the two families, the Obama family, a beautiful nuclear family. This woman has a gorgeous nuclear family. She used to get up in the morning at 3 a.m. with her dad to hunt moose. She's a champion snowmobile person. She was a great, as you mentioned earlier in the newscast, she was a great basketball player. Won the critical game for the small high school championship game with the stress fracture and a foot hitting the critical free throw. Sarah Barracuda. Yeah. I mean, it would be a great story, but does John McCain think that way? People are suggesting at 71 he doesn't really think very sharp. If he comes up with something like this, we got a game.
Well, he's had some criticism, too, because people are saying he owns 7 homes, kind of an elitist, but she is just on the opposite end of the spectrum you mentioned earlier.
Yes, self-made person. If I pronounce the Eskimo family correctly, I think it's Yupik. He's a Native American, Todd, her husband, a Yupik Eskimo. She broke her fingers working on his fishing boat when they've been high school sweethearts. So, I mean, she married the high school sweetheart. She ran against the Republicans, and she beat the Republican establishment. She called them into question. Ted Stevens, who was indicted by a Republican prosecutor, she went after him and said, we're not going to build this bridge to nowhere, which he was known for, and captured all that federal money. She said, we don't need to do this. It's really...
And financially, they had nothing, right? She grew up with nothing. And they basically, what'd you say, Patrick? They
pulled themselves up by the bootstraps. I think this is kind of a good pick by the McCain camp, because just a week ago there was the 7 houses bit, and he stumbled. He didn't really know how to react to that. And then to counter that, here he chooses someone perhaps that is relatable in youth, relatable in economy.
Right.
So that it kind of takes away that thunder that John McCain is so aloof that he doesn't know what's going on. Here you have a woman and her husband and her family. They've been there. They've been there in the pits. They've struggled, and they have made it.
And what's fascinating, too, Thom, is that we chatted about this last week before Barack named Joe Biden as his running mate. We thought, okay, maybe the governor out of Kansas, you know, represent the heartland. She's female, so you get that Hillary Clinton vote. And now the Republicans are the ones that you wouldn't think would do it, but they're the ones doing it right now, if indeed, of course,
and when you go back to that female vote, the one thing about John McCain is that he has been a maverick all his life. They're trying to tie him to George Bush. Now he makes this selection. He ties himself to an authentic maverick executive governor in this country. I mean, she went up against her own party, went after the state chairman. Now you're also talking about the war issue. Biden is so good on foreign affairs, and that's the reason he's on that ticket. Well, when they debate, people are concerned that she may not be able to deal with the issue. Here's the issue. John McCain's son is in Iraq. Her son is going to Iraq in a month. And when they debate that issue, I think she's going to speak from the heart. She had a little baby 3 months ago. She had the option for an abortion. She decided not to. They knew that this child had Down syndrome, and she decided, and she looks at the baby, she says, I see a beautiful face. I see a beauty. I mean, she's an extraordinary American story. The fact that John McCain would select her is one of his better decisions that he's made in some time.
Is it possible, Thom, that the Hillary Clinton supporters are so irate at Barack Obama that they will go and they will vote? You know, what Hillary said was, many of you, while voting for me, were voting for you. And that they may cross over and vote for her because she is such a great story, or vote for the McCain-Palin ticket if it comes around.
Well, the bottom line, I mean, you've said this several times before. You see all the polls. The majority of Americans, women, are going to decide this. 45% undecided. And this may sway them.
Most recent Wall Street poll had 72%. 72% of the people, the women there, voting for Hillary, but he had another 30% that hadn't made up their mind yet. And one out of 5 were decided to vote for John McCain. Now, this solidifies his pro-life vote, and I think the race is going to be won based on organization in 18 states. I think that the key, what Obama's doing, is that he's not worried about big poll numbers. He's worried about getting those voters registered and getting them out. They think they have another 900,000 voters registered in Florida, where he's trailing by 5-7% right now. I mean, they are registering voters. This gives life and breathes oxygen into the pro-life, into the conservatives to start getting out there and working. Now, all of a sudden, you have the next generation of Republican leaders on the stage with Sarah Palin. I think it's a wise decision. I'm surprised he's making it.
How important is it that she's a governor and not a senator? Because how long has it been since we voted a senator into the White House, and someone really wants a Washington insider?
Well, it's 1960 was the last senator, and that was John Kennedy. But and Alaska, by the way, has gone Republican. Since 1959, they became a state. Since then, they've always voted for a Republican, except for LBJ in 1964 when Goldwater was running against them. So it's very important from an executive point of view. The criticism of some of the insiders on McCain's campaign are saying, well, she doesn't have the experience, and we said Obama doesn't have the experience. Now, how are we going to argue that issue? You know, they're picking. Yeah. That may be a criticism, but I think the executive leadership and her skills at beating her own party and cutting the fat out. When she was mayor up in Alaska, she cut taxes by 60%. I mean, she's got a heck of a record. It's going to be tough to vet her and look for a bad spot.
So on one side, you can't say that change isn't happening on the McCain camp either, though.
Well, it's fascinating. We'll find out if the announcement comes at 11 a.m. if it indeed is Sarah Palin.